Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 132, i.e., I Hardly Knew Ye, recorded on February 5th, 2021 from Zenata Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Yeah, so our announcements and events, it is picking up. We're seeing quite a bit of more events are slowly but surely starting to come in. We have our own webinar coming up on the 16th at 10 a.m. We're actually going to cover CRM 2021. It'll be, I think, a little bit different than the one we did last year covering CRM. There were so many changes this year that I think we're going to focus a lot on the new features and new functionality and a lot of the things they did. And then, of course, if you head over to CRM Zen and you click on the events tab, all of the events that we can find, we keep them here, and we're starting to see them fill in. So, and I'm kind of putting them in from a lot of different companies. We've got some really interesting ones come in. So a lot of different people are starting to host these events now. We're starting to see them come in. Unfortunately, as we've talked about before with Zoho, oftentimes they don't announce their webinars till like the day before. So that can make it a little difficult, but head on over there. Good stuff coming up. Also, let's move on to the news. Zoho Assist no longer supports Internet Explorer. It's a sad day, but it's basically done. So don't really know much to say about that.
I think this will be one of many applications like this that outside of Zoho as well that I think over the next couple of years are going to halt support. I think it's fully deprecated now by Microsoft, right? That happened, I think, last year. I finally got officially end of life. Like, we're no longer required to make this work because they're all on Edge now. So I think this will be the trend across the next couple of years.
The browser wars of the past. I mean, it is. I think the clear victor ended up being Chrome there. I mean, I think, what is it, 80% or something like that?
It's a huge percent of traffic.
Primary browser. And it used to be reversed. I think back before the days when the antitrust, Windows had 95% with IE. That was it. It's all you could use. So goodbye, Internet Explorer. I hardly knew ye. All right. And Zoho Backstage. They got a really nice update here. So they launched OnAir, I want to say a couple of months ago, maybe 3-4 months ago, to kind of support virtual events. And basically they've just made some things to make it a little more seamless. It's pretty slick. Multiple speakers and attendees can video conference at the same time. It looks like the screen sharing is maybe a little bit improved as well. I want to play with this. If the recording quality on this is good, I'm in. The other cool thing they've done, which we might want to look at, is now with the Zoom integration, you can integrate Zoom with Backstage, but I don't know how that's going to change things. But it does look, you see kind of over on the side here, this looks like a really interesting integration, doesn't it?
Yeah, probably what they're doing is just replacing whatever their webinar tool is behind the scenes, which is probably a reskinned Showtime, right? And they're going to just replace that engine with Zoom if you activate that integration.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little embed. It's interesting, though, because it looks like a different UI than's native to Zoom Webinar, because we actually use that ourselves. And this is slightly different the way that they're showing it here. So it's not just like a straight up embed. They've done something a little bit out of the box here.
Yeah, I don't have. So, for example, I don't have the invite, mute all, more. I'm not seeing this right now on the Zoom webinar we're doing. So, anyway, a couple of things we have to play with, but Backstage really did a nice job of adapting, I think, to the changing times with COVID and the fact they had to move virtual. So, good update there. Well, we got more deprecation notices. So some final reminders. Basically, if you're using auth tokens, don't use auth tokens. The end is nigh. And so now it looks like we're talking for projects. It's going to be February 28th.
I think click as well in a separate article here that's linked.
Yeah, I think we've covered this to death. But
just a new notice, Click and Zoho projects are now in that same bucket like the rest of the finance apps. You'll have to make your change over to OAuth.
I don't think we need to cover these anymore. I think basically it's done. Don't use auth tokens. And then Zoho Mail got 2 new widgets. I like them. They've got a mail merge widget, which is really, really cool, which basically allows you now to do a mail merge from directly inside of Zoho Mail. So that's kind of different. I'm not sure I'd use it because I would just do my mail merges directly from inside the CRM. I think it's much more simpler and elegant, and it writes back that way. But I think for people that are just using Zoho Mail, this isn't a bad way to go.
It is interesting here that it does look like it's you're pulling from Sheets, Zoho Sheet, Zoho Forms, or local file to actually use as the data source. So I think, I'd imagine CRM hopefully not too far behind, but I think that might be a limiting factor for some people using this, at least right now.
Yeah, it would make so much sense, right? To just be able to pull from a custom view in the CRM and have that directly in here.
Right, you pick a template and you choose a deal or whatever, and you pull from there. But that looks like not quite yet.
No, and if you're using CRM, it's just you
just
don't
go
need
from
it.
there.
Yeah, you just don't need it. If you're not, then this is probably a nice to have. All right, and then they added another widget, which is now they've integrated Zoho Showtime. So directly in, you can invite someone to a Showtime and manage your training sessions, and launch the session directly from Zoho Mail. These widgets, I tell you what, I've been living in Zoho Mail now for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. The widgets are good. They're powerful. You sitting in there in Mail, you can check on everything inside finance, go in CRM, look at their subscriptions, really look at their desk tickets. I mean, you can do all that, of course, in Google as well. They've got the same kind of things, but it is a little slicker. It's nice. I tell you what, if Zoho Mail added the tasking engine, if you could make an email a task, and that task would be a live link, Tyler.
So the email.
Yep. That's what's keeping you away, isn't it?
That's really it. That's what does it on Sorted for me, is that I can treat an email like a task, but when I click on it, I can actually email back. So that task contains the entirety of an email chain. It's it's a unique thing that Sorted has done, a little Gmail plugin that we use. And like you've mentioned, there are workarounds for that. Like I could make a folder for each of my task categories, and I could drop them in there. But these actually give me a little task view where I can set a due date and set those types of things that keep me honest.
Well, I mean, what I miss is when I was using Sorted, is that I not only would make an email a task, but you can also just make a task. You can just simply add tasks. So everything's kind of in one folder, and it is nice. So, and it's kind of an odd thing because the Zoho email client is really full featured, and and you have tasks right there on the side. And I just,
but they're just like a separate record from the email.
Yeah. And you've got some, and the widgets also. So you actually have a project widget, and you have a sprints widget, and you'd think, okay, and you can easily create a task from an email, and it takes the full body of that email and it dumps it into the project task or dumps it into the sprint task, but it's not linkable. You actually can't reply to it. It's actually not the email. So it's just that little missing step. So, but anyway, I'm enjoying Mail, and I just like to complain. So, and then Zoho Sheets had a big week. So 4 new functions. This first function, I mean, a couple of them we talked about here, but this let function, this looks pretty cool, Tyler. I mean, you kind of spend a lot of time doing this. Do you think this would simplify things to you? Because it's basically taking a function and kind of turning it and allowing you to apply English tags to it, right? Am I reading that right?
So you're basically you're getting like your revenue in this example here. Yeah. I get what they're doing. Yeah. So you're basically able to run multiple calculations kind of inside of one formula column. Kind of interesting. I mean, I don't spend a lot of times in Zoho Sheet. I'd be interested if they put this in the Zoho Analytics. That's generally where I'm running any of their types of formulas. But yeah, it's interesting when it's, basically the example that they're running here is rather than, running 2 different functions to basically say, here's someone's total sales amount times their commission. You're running a different structure of a function and actually letting you name some variables within that function. So I'm actually saying in here, define revenue as the sum, define commission as revenue, which I just defined, times 0.1.
And then you're defining the person.
Yep.
Right.
Defining the person as a text. So it's kind of an interesting one. It's basically a way to, add these names within your formula column. So you don't have to pull a sum every time you want to reference revenue, right? Within there.
It's like a mini pivot table.
Mm-hmm.
Its own little thing. And then we talked about this last week, but you can now actually embed images directly. And this was kind of a roll up one, but they're throwing it again. But this is nice. You can drop images actually into a cell. So they're not actually floating around like on most spreadsheet programs. They're just kind of floating around on the spreadsheet. And as things change, they can move spaces. So this is nice. And then they've added split. So basically the opposite of,
Interesting. It's basically text to columns, but in a cell format rather than a bulk action.
Yeah. Well, concatenate is is to join things, and then this is basically splitting them. And right now, I use Power Tools for this. So you're basically splitting on a delimiter, which is and the delimiter I imagine can be a space as well.
It's probably going to give you whatever you want, right? You're just going to define a string,
Yep. Well, it seems like you have to put the delimiter in.
Right? Yeah. So I would say delimiter for this, I'm going to use a comma. I'm going to use the word the. I'm going to use whatever I want. Right. And I can split this up.
And I'm assuming I could do quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and drop a space in there, right? If I wanted to split by a space. Then IFNA, which is what? Is this a count if function?
It's kind of like an if null, except it's an NA if there's an error. So if you have a function that errors out in sheet, it basically responds NA. And so I could basically make another column that's like an error check that like if this other calculated column is NA, then highlight this for me or throw a value here so I can check it.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, if you're running a lot of complicated formulas that have a chance to fail based on maybe a missing field or something like that, I'd see that one as really useful. I mean, it's kind of like an error check inside of a custom function, just on a cell.
Yeah, Sheets is getting better and better and better. And then they also, what else did they do? Oh, you can now send a spreadsheet to someone and password protect it as an email attachment. Isn't that nice?
Why not?
Yeah. Well, that's a feature that exists virtually in it doesn't exist in Google Sheets, I don't think right now, but it's been in Excel forever, right? To be able to set that password and do it. So that's a nice feature. I mean, that's something that, one of the things is I personally think Zoho Sheets is a fantastic word processor. And if you talk to somebody who lives in Excel, it's hard to get them to move away because it's probably the best, most powerful. It's the, one of the original ones, but, Zoho Sheets is way more powerful than Google Sheets. And it's making a lot of progress. You excited about that?
I am.
Well, that brings us to the implementation of the week.
Yes, this was one that, we may have talked about analogs of this or kind of similar implementations in the past, but I thought I would circle back to it because we've really expanded it a lot. And, basically it's running some composite reporting from Zoho Desk and Zoho Projects in analytics. And there's kind of just a common issue that people bump into, right? Where you're selling projects that need to be implemented. Right? Maybe you're doing physical locations on site. Maybe you're doing software development. Maybe you're doing legal work, right? But as these projects are going along, you're tracking your actual project work in projects, right? So the actual implementation, but then support either during or after the project, you're routing everything into Desk, right? So those calls, hey, you implemented this a month ago. It's having an error. Please help, right? That's all going to go to Desk. And a common problem is that you've got team members who might work on both sides of the aisle, right? They're in projects and they're in Desk. But those two systems, if I pull a report in Desk that says time billings, I'm only going to see Desk, right? If I pull that report in projects, I'm only going to see projects. If I were to pull a report in Desk that shows high priority open tickets, I'm only going to see Desk tickets. I'm not going to see those action items that are over in projects. So basically what we do is we pointed both of these data sources into one centralized database in analytics. And then because we can build SQL tables, we actually just pull out, select columns from your different tickets and your tasks and your billings in both the different applications. and basically create two tables, one from desk and one from projects, that are the same columns and the same structure of data. Then we can add those tables together and get just one master data table of all action items, whether they're complete, the time billed on them, who billed the time, who's the task owner, all these different types of metrics. So you can actually have a dashboard that shows, here's all of our open tasks and all of our open tickets in one big report. So I can look at John Smith and see all the open stuff they got to work on. Then I can go down that page and look at John Smith in the billable time report and see all of their projects time, all of their desk time, right? All these different values just in one table. So I could say, how much time did John spend last week? I can just pull that report and it's going to sync in from both those two data sources. It's something we're actually doing more and more with SQL. There's kind of some ways with it that you can kind of cheat on Zoho's data structure and kind of remake things how you need them. And we're finding it to just be such a powerful tool because we're able to do that and basically take two data sets that don't look alike, where you normally wouldn't be able to report on them as one report, and join them into a table that's consistent and reportable.
This is great. I actually had a conversation yesterday with a company that wanted to do just this. And I said, yes. The one thing they were talking about, though, is they have this right now. Here's their issue. They've got projects, they've got desk, but then they have people out in the field. Mm-hmm. And the people out in the field are recording their time using T-sheets, which is from QuickBooks. And of course, there is a Zoho flow to bring in T-sheets, but if they were to record their time using people or just books time reporting, I would imagine you could pull that into here. Or would you recommend they just record their time as they open a desk ticket and record their time that way? And then we pull it all in. Because you could keep adding data sources to this as need be, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like in this example, I've stacked up two different tables, one from projects and desk. But let's say you wanted CRM tasks or you wanted, these other objects. I will say people is a little different. We've been playing around a little more with the way that data flows out of people into analytics. And when it comes to the attendance and time tracking, it's a little bit odd in the way that it gives you the data. It takes a lot of processing, and there's some specific cadences, like it'll only give you, last pay period. And then once there's a new pay period, the previous one leaves analytics. So that would be a little bit tricky. I've not actually tied in T-sheets, but if you can connect that data in analytics, it's generally possible to pull these tables together. Because really all you need to do, as long as all of the tables that you're looking at have those data sources or there's those data points that you need, like who did it, what was done, and how much time was spent, then you're able to consolidate that data one way or another into one big report.
And this also gives you profitability on deals, and it's nice.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. It's one of those benefits more and more that we see it, especially as over time, when we used to work almost not solely on CRM, but mostly on CRM, where now we're touching a lot more apps on a day-to-day basis. Analytics is just so powerful because you're just able to pull all this together. Like you're saying, you could sell a deal, have a project underneath it, and roll up time billings against the deal amount, right? And see your exact profitability. There's just so much you can do.
Yeah. Nice. All right, let's move on to this week's read. I like this one. So I went to HubSpot. We have not been there in a while. This was just published last week. And this is 11 social media calendar tools and templates to plan your content. I wouldn't recommend using any of these. If you have Zoho, you can do all of this in Zoho, but what I liked about this is it's really nice from planning. So even though they're talking about, here's an Excel template for planning your social media, which no, let's not do that. But they really run through why you want to do it, how it should look, how you kind of put things out. And they're talking about all of the various methodologies here. And, you can use the calendar in Google Drive. Sure. There's a product called Loomly, which is, for planning content. But what I would do is I would kind of dig into these and look at kind of the different features, and almost all of this can be done inside Zoho easily as you kind of run through these, especially when you look at things like Hootsuite, which is Zoho Social for all intents and purposes. Mm-hmm. There's a lot you can do here. So I think if you're managing social media, worth taking a look at each one of these apps, thinking about how it works in Zoho, but also how to manage your social media, how to set up your social media calendar and do that.
It's kind of a big part of things, that shouldn't always be reactive with social media. You want to have some planned posts out to the future so that you've always got something in the tank to keep people engaged.
Yeah, we drop, 2 blogs a week. And then we have all of our videos that drop, which is usually 1 to 2 videos a week, that go out, and they're scheduled out. The month of February is done, right? They're written, done, scheduled. They've been SEO'd, posts have been written, and everything just drops on the time. So you can kind of look at your calendar, and we try to plan it out. So anytime we're doing, like this month is on CRM, we try to have stuff around CRM. Right. And, as we kind of roll through things here. So anyway.
And the nice thing about planning this stuff out is that then if you're ever a week behind, you're still 3 weeks ahead. If you've got a month of content in the bank and it's already scheduled and good to go, worst case scenario, let's say you get pulled onto something really important and you can't plan, 5 weeks ahead or that next week that you would normally do, you've still got some wiggle room without having any droughts and content.
Yeah. It's good stuff. So, all right. And then speaking of content, over at Zenata, we have our 2 blogs that have dropped for the week. So we've got understanding the sales cycle of your CRM. And I don't think I actually clicked this one. So let's just see what that one looks like too. So 9 reasons why you need a business application suite. And so it's kind of basically telling you why you would want Zoho 1. And how it can help boost your efficiency. But if you'll notice, we have stepped up our game here on our blogs, and I think you'll find some really good content here. It's getting to the point where I can make us our reads of the week. Also understanding your sales cycle for CRM, and we kind of run through everything. Basically, this is more of a standard, just how to qualify leads, the buying process, getting your quotes, everything you want to do. So a couple nice articles over there as well. And then YouTube, we did a webinar this week, Tyler.
Yeah, and this was a webinar that we actually did with the Zoho One webinar team. So shout out to Dylan. Thanks for looping us in on this. And in this webinar, we pretty much walked through the CRM and Zoho Finance workflow, kind of at a baseline level of how the standard out of the box workflow works. And then some of the custom workflows that we oftentimes implement for people, using some CRM subforms and some custom deluge. I will say we actually do include in this the actual scripts that were written. I guess if you're looking at it online, you wouldn't have access to the slides, but leave us a comment or something. We'll coordinate and get you the code in text form, because we actually include a lot of our script in this that we implemented for the demos. So definitely worth taking a look. Might get some ideas going on how the interactions between these products might benefit your sales processes.
Yeah, this was a big hit. Believe I had 2 calls yesterday with people who wanted to talk to us because they watched this. And they were this is not, so we start off, I think, in my portion in the first 10 minutes is very simplistic, basic. Then you take over and we kind of take it to the next level of what you can do in these things. And I think it was good. It was kind of a different kind of webinar, and exceptionally well received. So thanks.
And great Q&A at the end too. We had a lot of questions, even some of them outside of exactly what we were talking about, but all just kind of in that space of how CRM and books can work together. So overall, worth taking a look.
Yeah, that almost the last half hour was Q&A, huh?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of Q&A.
Yeah, went through that. All right, and then for our application of the week, full page screen capture. I love this application. This is just a standard Chrome plugin. It sits up, if you're on a web page and it's a very long web page, perhaps maybe it's a super long article, and you're scrolling, you can do screenshots. You click this, and it just gives you a PDF. You can tell if you want to be PDF or JPEG, and it saves it as a single image for you to basically do anything with. And it does a little Pac-Man as it's capturing the screen. It's a very simple tool, but sometimes a pretty powerful one, especially when you're trying to save.
It's funny when you first pulled this up, I was getting ready to give you a hard time because I'm like, why would you ever need this? You can just take a screenshot. Then I realized that websites are oftentimes longer than a page. So
Yes.
that answers my own question. That I was getting one in the chamber to give you a hard time on this.
Well, hey,
that's actually pretty slick. Yeah, and 50,000 people agree with you. So
and 4 million users. So some people find this valuable, Tyler.
Yep. No, I what is it? I'll eat crow on this one. I'll admit I was ready to give you a hard time, but that actually is pretty slick.
It's a nice application. I use it occasionally. It's kind of like if I want to just grab it. Sometimes you'll get an article that you can't save it to instant paper. You can't, there's a lot of things you can't do. Sometimes things are locked down. You can't even copy them. You've seen that, right? Where they made it. So it's like, great, I'll just make a PDF of the whole thing and read it later. And it's a nice application. So check that out. GoFullPage by GoFullPage.com. And that brings us to our tip of the week, which was you and I having a lot of fun yesterday. So we've started a whole new beginner series. And I guess our tip of the week should just be called our beginner series from now on, because this is all we're dropping in here. Last month we did desk. This month we sat down and said, okay, what do we want to do it on? Let's do it on campaigns. It was kind of interesting because we went through and we'd already done 8 nice little kind of tips on campaigns. But we were able to find 4 new ones that we're dropping this month where we'd really never touched on before. And they're kind of key. This first one is, synchronizing lists with Zoho CRM. So it's campaigns and CRM synchronization. And we've already gotten a bunch of comments on it and a bunch of views. And it just went out last night, I think at midnight. And so it's a nice little 9-minute tutorial. And what else do we have coming, Tyler?
So our next one is going to be posted on how to set up a campaign. So just like a one-shot email that's going to go out to a list. We kind of cover all the basics and best practices there. Then the next one will be on workflow automation. So basically how to enter someone into a long-form series or journey of emails that has some click and open responsiveness. And then lastly, we're doing one on, setting up a list and getting people into it via one of the Zoho campaigns sign-up forms. So we kind of oftentimes pick these topics based on the things that we set up the most commonly for people, that we kind of see being used. So feel free, if you check any of these out and have any other topics or apps, just get in touch with us and let us know, because we're always looking for more ideas.
Yeah, and unlike our webinars where we take carefully crafted screenshots and we can go through, you can actually watch us fumble around sometimes a little bit as we
I'm trying to go slower with my mouse. I realized in the first ones in desk, I'm a little quick with the mouse sometimes. So I tried to go nice and slow. Yeah, I try to go slower on these so people can see it, because I'm a little frantic sometimes with my mouse.
It is funny when we do these though too, because Zoho is constantly changing things. And you get to the point where you basically, it's total rote, right? You click on settings and your mouse just moves to the spot of the screen where it is, and then it's not there anymore because they've moved it somewhere. But anyway, good series. I think everyone will like it. At least I hope you do. All right, buddy. Great show. If you want to get a hold of us, you can reach out to us over at Zenata.com or CRMZen.com.
And as always, you can follow us on all your favorite social media platforms and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, as well as here on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.